This is Intelligent Psycho, so I'm gonna do a spoiler talk for the movie Sinners. So in this section, I'm just gonna talk about things that also occur in the movie that didn't really, that didn't really get a chance to go into full detail in the movie in the review, in my movie review a few days ago. So here I'm gonna talk about some things. One, so we saw the two characters, Stacks and Smokes. They were pretty much in their do wagon, and they basically was driving down in Mississippi, and this is taking place in the 1930s, right? So they were driving down. They get their cousin Sammy Moore, and I believe he was portrayed. Yeah, he was portrayed by Miles Catton. Yeah, their cousin, and he pretty much was rolling with them. They go into this ranch, and we end up seeing. Oh, sorry. We end up seeing. So we end up seeing them rolling down, and so they were end up staying over for they staying down at this guest ranch for the night, and they were over in the oversight and the overview along with Slim, played by Delroy Lindo. So we end up seeing them. So we end up seeing them going down. Go. We end up seeing them going to stay at this ranch for the night, and we end up seeing them getting a lot of churchgoers, get a lot of band members, and getting a lot of players at this ranch for only for that one night and in particular. So that way they end up having to so that way they end up having to play for that night, and in order to, for a lot of the band members, for a lot of the people to see how they are and see how they are while they're performing. And so once we end up seeing that, and once we end up seeing at by that part of that particular night, the the girl Mary who comes into the movie later on, she's all about wanting to get stacks. She's all about wanting stacks, and she's all about trying to get back with it because back then there was a confrontation, there was some things happened in the past, you know, growing up in both of their childhood that they couldn't be together at all. One because along the lines of like different class, different families, and a lot of racial epithets, a lot of racial profiling at that time, and so that's what we end up seeing. She ends up getting there, but Smoke don't want Mary there at all at the party. She don't want there won't she don't he don't want Smokes don't want Stacks to have Mary at all at the party. She wants her to be gone. He wants her to be kicked out, as we seen that in the movie. But Miles Can, who plays Sammy Moore, he ends up having a natural talent in the movie because he ends up playing the electric guitar, he ends up playing the strings, and he ends up singing, as well, and virtually realizes that his talent pretty much propelled and carried him, and he pretty much is the star of the movie because of his singing. But what happens is because his father, who is a well-known preacher, doesn't want him to continue playing doesn't want to continue playing music, doesn't want to continue playing for Stacks and Smoke, and doesn't want to continue to play for them, doesn't want to continue to play for them because his side of music is pretty much
Hello, Moto.
sorry about that, guys. I'm getting interruptions. Anyways, sorry about that, guys. Got a little bit of interruptions. Um, getting back to the point. So yeah, his father, who was a preacher, Sammy's father, who was a preacher, did not want him to continue to perform because of the fact that the music that you're playing and pretty much the overall his overall performance was kind of just going against tradition, going against the sins, going against you know what the church was wanting him to do, man. And so that would pretty much within and of itself was a outlier. We end up seeing more or less the Jack O'Connor's character who plays Remick also who has talent, natural born talent in the movie as a musician, but he ends up having this one inability, his ability because he ends up telling later on, and we end up seeing throughout the movie that he is a vampire. And throughout the movie, and Remick and a group of natives and a group of his people was going to this ranch, and they wanted to perform at that party, and cornbread, Stacks, and Smoke. Stack don't mind anybody. Stack didn't wouldn't mind anybody coming in and performing, but Smoke was like, if we're gonna have them coming in, we're gonna have a bunch of folks coming in, and we end up having a whole big outlier party that didn't really that's not at a whole big outlier party, and then they end up gonna tell their people to come down and watch them perform, and end up whatever fight because a fight's gonna break out, a whole clan's gonna come down and see because at that time in the 30s the Klan was pretty much taken over, was pretty much all around, and they did not want no blacks. They didn't want no equality. They didn't want to see no blacks performing at their ranch. That's pretty much been booted up, been renovated, been broken down, raggedy, and overall about to be renovated. But they end up overnight while they was performing, they end up taking the light of his own. So while they told Remick and his crew that you did not want, that they didn't want to go there and perform, so they kicked him out. But Mary ends up going after them and seeing and hearing their talents. But what would happen is, and also what happened to Cornbread in the movie, he ends up getting bit by one of them, and one of them and ends up flesh and blood, and also Mary ends up sucking the life out of Stacks in the back room, and he ends up becoming a vampire as well. So a lot of the vampires are just wreaking havoc, and we end up seeing them just wreaking havoc on the ones who aren't vampires. And you can see pretty much what happened is what is the resistance of vampires is garlic, as you eating so much amount of garlic, and also sunlight, sunrise. And that's what happens, but pretty much keeps them. So they had to wait all the way up night till sunrise for all of them to come. But also, Smoke's character, and the difference between Stacks and Smoke's character pretty much is all about business. He's all about, you know, killing. He's all about action. He's all about the business, but he also was all about trying to keep a level-headed mind. Whereas Stacks he's all about fun. He's all about making bread. He's all about seeing and visualizing talent wherever it goes. Then we end up later on in the movie, Cornbread, as he comes back and he starts looking at Annie, played by Wumi Masako. She notices that Cornbread kept asking like, "Why can't you invite me in? Why can't you invite me in?" She's like, "As big as you are, you don't need to be getting invited in." So she's noticed some things being off, and everybody else knows some things being off, and Smoke also noticed a lot of things being off and was like, "Yeah, this don't feel right. Something must have happened." And so they didn't continue to let him in, and then once Smoke's character realizes what happens, once Smoke's character realizes what happens, we end up seeing that something big had happened and continued to oh shoot. Something big had happened at that time and kind of made things go awry, and made Smoke a little bit weary. Made Smoke, Annie, Slim, and of course Sammy a little bit weary because later on we end up seeing that Cornbread, his brother Stack, Mary, all of them was being possessed by the bite mark, of Remick and the bite mark of his crew, and then they end up having a whole clan, a whole slew, and a whole slew of vampires. wallowing throughout the movie. Once they stayed over the night, once they stayed over the night, overnight and waited till sunrise. Later on, whole bunch of clans comes down. You know, Smoke tells Sammy, just clear the way and just get on out of here because I gotta finish one job. And so later on, he finishes up that one job, and a whole slew of clans just came in the next following day. And Smoke knew where they all was going, so he ends up coming. He ends up staying over. He ends up taking them all out, killing them one by one, slaughtering them, and that pretty much is the intel of that part of the movie. And hold on, guys, I'll be right back. Damn, man. Dang, I'm in the middle of the damn street. Oh, okay. All right, guys. Sorry about that. Just got a little bit of interruptions. Had a lot of interruptions. So yeah, getting back to the movie and getting back to this part. Getting back to the movie and getting back to that part. So yeah, well, Smoke ended up taking out. Smoke ended up taking out all of the clans, and pretty much one of them was left over. He rolls over one of the Klan members and kind of just left him a cigarette butt. And afterwards, we end up seeing the aftermath in the movie, and then we do end up getting a post credit scene. And in the post credit scene, Stacks, Mary, both of them don't have no scars and bite marks, so he end up stopping by at the in the club next to the bar by the bartender and starts talking to Sammy. Sammy ends up reminding Stacks and Mary about that time what happened when they went to the when they stayed over that night at the ranch, and pretty much he remembers what happened at that night. He was like, I still remember that. I still remember that time and won't be able to forget it. And it kind of was alluding to something that could be a telling. It's like, could that be a telling of another? Could that be a tale of another sequel? A sequel lining up, and could that be entail of something happening? Because he still kind of figures in his mind that night, hearing his vision and hearing him performing and hearing him singing and hearing him, just leaving all showcasing all of his talents there, performing kind of really just took him over the edge and took him over the top, and he became one of the greatest musicians, that ever play, man. And he, just pretty much took his talents to new levels and new heights. So Sammy pretty much just took his way and took his talents over, and it kind of Stacks reminded him that he was promised, he had promised by his brother to leave you alone. And when Smoke and Annie, Slim and Sammy, all of them was taking out all of the vampires, they left them alone. They left them all. They left Mary and they left Stacks all out the way, and pretty much they end up getting away and they end up escaping. So all of them was left over after they had their little, you know, stand still, had they all hovered around and had their own little, prop two dance, and everything was just like left the boat. So yeah, that's just it for the movie, man. And spoiler talk, man, because what a fantastic movie that was. That was pretty much that pretty much took over for me, and pretty much is gonna be the highlight movie heading into the summer for 2025. So definitely a strong viewing, and I recommend anybody to check this one out if you have not seen it. So yeah, that's all I got to say in this review. Excuse me, spoiler talk. So next story I'm gonna talk about is Stevie Nicks. She's working on a new album that's inspired by the moment Prince rejected her necklace in the Purple Rain premiere. So they're not airy fairy songs that we're wondering about where you really don't get it. Nicks tease up and coming project and the real stories and memories of mine of fantastic men. So Stevie Nicks' upcoming album is a surprising origin story of her awkward interaction with Prince after the Purple Rain premiere. The Edge of 17 singer detailed her latest project after her speech at the 2025 Pollstar Awards after she was inducted into the Pollstar Live Hall of Fame on Wednesday. "I written a song about Prince and we were friends," Nick said. The singer recounted arriving at Purple Rain premiere in Hollywood in 1984, and I could watch it. And he slaps Apollyon after I freaked out. Nick said of seeing Prince's character, the kid, assaulting his girlfriend, Apollonia Cotero in the film, and I go to the fancy bathroom and sit there for the rest of the whole movie. Nix later went to the party after the premiere and talked to Prince, who was sitting, to hear where she thought about the film. "Here it goes. Did you love it?" She remembered, and I am like, "I only saw it in the first half, and yeah." He's like, "Why?" "Because you slapped that girl." Earlier in her speech, Nix had discussed the genesis of the album, and I called it the ghost record because it was just kind of happening in the last couple of weeks. She said nothing that had been bored sitting in a hotel for 92 days as a result of the Los Angeles wildfires in January. And I thought you need to go back to work, Nick said, and I did. I had 7 songs, and they were autobiographical, real stories where I'm not pulling any punches for probably the first time in my life. Nix wrote her 1983 single "Stand Back" after she heard Prince's Little Red Corvette and eventually got the "Let's Go Crazy" legend that helped her finish the track in the studio. And she also said that Prince smash "When Doves Cry" was inspired by her own Edge of 17. So yeah, I cannot wait to hear this Stevie Nicks album because she is an absolute legend, and I definitely want to hear what her 7 songs and everything she's been working on was inspired by, the interaction that she had with Prince. And of course, I didn't even realize that the Let's Go Crazy and of course When Doves Cry inspired the Edge of 17. I didn't even realize that. So that is a pretty interesting kind of telling, interesting, pretty interesting in telling and barking the story that I just saw. So a really good way of pushing herself into really continued on her legacy and continued on where she's gonna go later for years to come. So definitely something I cannot wait to hear once the upcoming months stroll by. So definitely something that I'm really intrigued on hearing and really intrigued on getting and capturing. So definitely something that keep your eye out for. And definitely that Stand Back is my favorite track from her that she's done. And oh, sorry about that. Yeah, my favorite songs from Stevie Nicks is probably had to be "Go Your Own Way" and "Landslide" and "Stand Back." Those definitely were my standouts at the time, and I definitely like this one in particular because this is more of a live performance, and of course she she of course she was a part of the well-known established group with Fleetwood Mac. That definitely kind of really catapulted her career and launched her career where she was gonna reach levels of new heights. And of course, the Edge of 17, which is pretty much her biggest song that she's ever done, was just absolutely made to stardom and really made into uh, levels of new heights and status, man. So shout out to her as she continues on. Um, so definitely looking forward to this new album, and that would be my end of the story for that one. And so last but not least, the story I'm going to talk about as I'm finna get out of here real soon is uh, is John Cena's capturing his 17th world title versus Cody Rhodes. So we got the result in the main event of WrestleMania having a heel John Cena beat Cody Rhodes for the promotion's top title. And the fact that the match between John Cena and Cody Rhodes was so wasn't all that shocking, considering the part-time status for one of the combatants. But all could have been forgiven if they didn't devolve into a train wreck that put Travis Scott of all people in the deciding role. Once Scott's music hit and it was apparent it was going to be blended into The Rock's music, musician was going to be out there to be on his lonesome, could feel the air between sucked out of the Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. Of course, we already know about what happened. John Cena on Monday night explained, you know, the events that occurred on a couple of weeks, obviously not a couple of weeks, but a few months before the events of what happened in was going to happen in WrestleMania and Vegas. The the Rock, of course, plays the final boss character. Had John Cena turn heel by taking the dig and taking the swipe with the forearm up under Cody Rhodes, and it kind of just made it seem as though John Cena was just gonna be on another level to take the edge out as his final moments in the WWE and at WrestleMania 41 was gonna be secured if he was gonna secure that world title. That's what he wanted, and that's what he was gonna do as on his last leg. So he ended up by joining joining heads and joining tables with The Rock and just said, you know what, I'm gonna go out swinging. And then John Cena cut this whipping edge promo before the events on the fans, criticizing the fans for not, you know, really appreciating the legacy that he had built and the legacy that he had offered. Kind of going after the Cena, the Let's Go Cena crowd, and also going after the fans that chanted Cena sucks, was also a way of saying that, you know what, this was an opportunity in the moment that I wanted to capture. Being that John Cena capturing his 17th title and a win over Cody Rhodes, he pretty much surpasses Ric Flair for the most world titles in WWE history. I mean, that is a very well accomplishment for him. I'm definitely am proud and happy for him and excited for what could be the next ongoing chapter. I did not know that Travis Scott was there in attendance coming out of the ring and then blending in his music with The Rock. I did not know that was even going to happen. But so after watching last night's events and after watching a lot of the matches, I will do a recap of WrestleMania 41 probably later on, today or probably sometime this week. I ain't gonna make a prediction of where I'm gonna land, but yeah, probably I'll do a recap after I get done with all of the matches and highlights and really my thoughts about everything. So yeah, so overall, man, happy for John Cena. That's a really good moment for him, and pretty much cemented himself as top five greatest of all time, with this accomplishment and with this feat, man. So salute to him, man. That's a really good moment for him, and of course there's gonna be a lot of naysayers, there's gonna be a lot of haters, there's gonna be a lot of doubters, on his that's not gonna be on the same level as him. So salute to him, man. And all right, so that'll be all for me, and that'll be it for the time being. So I will be heading up and out of here. So thank you all guys for watching. Uh, um, Thank you all for watching. Oh, hey, Gloria. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you and talk to you guys in the next one.